Let's try and predict each team's saves leader, not who will start with the job. Who will lead the team? And just give me a name, because we'll save some of the longer analysis for when we talk about ADP. So we'll start in the National League.
Okay. All right. We got to do that too?
We do. We're trying to keep it under 2 hours today. Here we go. The Dodgers, it's Edwin Diaz. The Padres, it's Mason Miller. The Giants,
I think it's likeliest to be Ryan Walker.
Not on the team, question mark?
Ryan Walker is openly campaigning for it. He says he wants that role, so yeah. We'll see. He's got to pitch last year, or maybe not.
To avoid losing it.
I read that exact thing earlier today. I also read that Buster Posey and Tony Vitello are open to a committee, so who knows? For the D-backs, Kevin Ginkel, Paul Sewald.
That is one of the real ugly ones.
One of the hurt relievers who returns midseason. I don't know.
If you're asking me to name a name, I'm going to say Kevin Ginkel.
Yep. That's a fun name to say.
It is. But that is one of the lowest conviction picks I'm going to make in this entire exercise, because Kevin Ginkel was awful last year. They were all awful last year. And so it's just a matter of who's going to step up, and will anyone step up, or will it just be a mishmash of Torey Lovullo just swapping out one awful option for another all season long? I could definitely see it playing out that way.
That's probably the more likely outcome.
It might not matter, but I'll just ask anyway. The Rockies.
They're even below the Diamondbacks.
Well, and the problem there is, like, even if Victor Vodnik is the closer for the whole season, I just don't think he's good.
I don't think he's good either, yeah.
Like,
Seth Halverson looked like he might be securing that role before getting hurt, and then he got hurt, and so Vodnik stepped in.
And I think Vodnik had like 7 saves in September, something crazy like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
They're not very good, the relievers themselves, and the team isn't very good.
Yeah.
So this feels like it's going to go, well, I mean, about like it's gone for the Rockies the past few years.
A couple of guys fighting over 32 saves just isn't very interesting.
Is it as many as 32? I mean, the White Sox have kind of been in the same situation in recent years, where it's just like, why bother? You're just...
How many did they have total? 29 last year.
Yeah.
I mean, of
their 50 wins, they might wind up with 30 saves total. Who knows? For the Phillies, it's Yohan Duran. For the Mets, it's Devin Williams, hopefully all season. For the Braves, I mean, look, it's Raisel Iglesias to start, but it is a thin margin for error there with Robert Suarez.
Yeah, that's fair, but I want to remind people of Raisel Iglesias' track record. Early last season was definitely the exception, and he righted the ship. He was. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but
save them for ADP, Scott. We don't got to talk about him now.
Okay, that's fine.
I
think Raisel Iglesias is secure because I think he's good, and I don't think he'll lose the job. But you're right; it is a thinner margin for error than he's ever had.
For the Marlins, all of last year, I told you they will never have a closer ever again, and then they signed Pete Fairbanks, who could be traded. So
it's definitely Pete Fairbanks gets 60% of the saves when he's on the team.
I hope it's more than that.
It's 60% of probably the first half of the season.
Yeah, no, it's less great than I think it seems, because I don't think they're just going to go treat him like the Guardians have treated Emmanuel Clase and Cade Smith over the past 4 years, where they're just, every time we have a save opportunity, that is the only guy who will get that opportunity. I just don't think that's how the Marlins are going to operate.
Well,
so I think Fairbanks is going to get the majority of the saves, but it's not going to be do not be surprised if Calvin Fauché has a save in the first week of the season. It might not mean anything as long as you go into it with the understanding that Pete Fairbanks is probably not going to, it's going to be very similar to how it was in Tampa.
Well, in Tampa, Fairbanks was the closer when he was healthy.
Yeah, he probably got, I would say, close to 75% of the saves last year. I don't know. Okay, 27 out of 35.
What was the line you kept saying about the Marlins bullpen last year, Frank? You had a line you said every time.
They do not have a closer, and they never will ever again.
And then they signed Pete Fairbanks this offseason, who had been a true closer the past 3 years. And they signed him to closer money.
Yep.
So I don't know. They clearly didn't have that type of reliever in their bullpen last year, which may have been why Clayton McCulloch was not willing to commit to any one reliever in the role. They have him now. I think the jury's out. I'm not drafting Fairbanks feeling secure about it, but I feel better about drafting Fairbanks than Ryan Walker, for instance.
Sure,
because
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a fun one: the Nationals.
It's
Who
like
cares?
it's like Rockies and Diamondbacks.
We can say some names: Clayton Beeter and Cole Henry and maybe Jackson Rutledge, but they're bad. They're bad pitchers and they're terrible teams. So,
and we're only 2 divisions in, right? And we already have 3 teams like that.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
The bottom end of the closer pool is really ugly.
For the Cubs, it should be Daniel Palencia. They have some other talented relievers in their bullpen.
but they already said if the season started now, Daniel Palencia would get the first save. That's not
Whether or not he can hold the job. Yeah.
Yeah. He was really good last year, but the command has been really, really bad before last season. So I think there's a lot of risk with Daniel Palencia.
For the Reds, I mean, I think it's a similar discussion as Palencia. I mean, Emilio Pagan was just the guy, and they brought him back, so he'll be the guy that's to start. But he's a fly ball pitcher in Cincinnati, so can he hold on to the job? That's the question. The Brewers, flip a coin, guys. Who do you have?
Managers tend to not like it when players lose their jobs because of injury. And if Abner Uribe opens the season as a closer, that's basically what happened to Trevor McGill, right? Like he was the unquestioned closer, and then last August, I think,
All-star.
late last August, he was one of the best closers in baseball. And then late last August, he suffers a flexor strain in his elbow, I believe.
Yep.
Goes on the IL. Abner Uribe is a very, very good pitcher in his own right and is a closer caliber pitcher. So if they did go with Abner Uribe, that would be reasonable. I tend to think McGill will just get the first shot because of some kind of incumbency advantage, but that's a total guess.
I haven't seen a beat writer for the Brewers leaning Uribe. They all lean McGill, but they all kind of acknowledge that the Brewers haven't addressed this.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been leaning McGill strongly. We did just get some news today on this front. It was that Trevor McGill had a PRP injection in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And also Pat Murphy seems open to playing matchups, which I think a lot more managers will say that than will actually follow through on it. So I don't want to look too deep into that either, but it's not what we want to hear. We want clarity, obviously. And so the main thing that gives me pause even more than that is McGill did return for 1 appearance in the regular season and for 5 in the postseason. Mm-hmm. And in none of those was he used as the closer. In fact, he was an opener for one of the postseason games. So I don't know what that means. Were they just easing him in? Opener in a playoff game isn't really an easing him in kind of role. So I don't know. I'm leaning McGill because nobody seems to be leaning Uribe, but I don't feel confident about it.
I think the biggest reason to lean Uribe would just be he didn't get hurt last year and Trevor McGill did. I think there's just probably more injury risk with Trevor McGill. But let's not forget that Abner Uribe a couple years ago was the year Devin Williams got hurt in 2024. Abner Uribe opened the season as the closer and was just a complete disaster and spent almost the entire season at AAA as a result. So as good as he has been at his best, we have seen some real downside for Abner Uribe too. So I lean Uribe, but in my top 300, I have them back to back.
And it could be a situation where it's 20 saves for one and 18 for the other. And it's just they go back and forth all season and they just have really good fluid bullpen.
It could be. I think a lot more often what we see along those lines, because people talk about how there are fewer like true save accumulating closers across the league, but I don't see a lot of true committees either where they're legitimately just going back and forth based on matchups. You see it sometimes, but more when the saves are distributed among a few relievers like that, it's because one of the relievers turns rotten for a while. So the manager has to move away from him, or it's an injury situation, like suppressed Fairbanks save totals in Tampa the past few years, or it's, a guy gets traded, and so then, obviously somebody steps in to take his saves total, and so you look at the end of the season and there's this even distribution of saves between a couple of relievers. So that's why I don't see it happening the way you lay out, Frank, with McGill getting 18 and Uribe getting 20 or whatever, unless McGill gets hurt. And then so Uribe steps in and takes over as the true closer.
And that is actually the way that I'm leaning here. I just don't know if Trevor McGill can stay healthy, and he got hurt last year and he throws really hard. And I think Abner Uribe is really good. So I'm kind of planting a flag there. I think it'll be Uribe eventually in the Brewers bullpen. For the Pirates, what do you think?
Santana seems secure to start out, and he's been good the last couple years. So I don't think he is indestructible by any means. And there are some other interesting arms like Justin Lawrence out of Colorado. He's got a really good slider. Maybe that turns into something, but there isn't an heir apparent. So I think Santana will have a pretty long leash.
Agreed.
And then the Cardinals.
Things seem to be trending Riley O'Brien's way at the end of last season. But after the trade deadline, when Ryan Helsley was moved to the Mets, it was pretty even between Riley O'Brien, the right-hander, Jojo Romero, the left-hander. O'Brien is dealing with an injury this spring. Doesn't sound like it's going to cost him at the start of the season, but you never know. So I think this is one of the I think this might end up being a true committee just because that's the way Oliver Marmol played it down the last couple months. And because the guy who I thought might have the advantage, O'Brien, is coming in at a disadvantage with the injury, it's possible even more arms work their way into this mix. So I have them back to back in my rankings, O'Brien and Romero, and not particularly high, not really even in the mixed league discussion, though. If either one emerges as the guy, he could be decent.
Yeah, I lean O'Brien. I thought Jojo Romero would have been traded this offseason, but it hasn't happened yet. So he could also be in the mix there. We go into the American League, and the Mariners have Andres Munoz. The Astros, Josh Hader should be the guy, but he's dealing with this biceps injury. So, I mean, it's really hard for us to say if, he misses a large majority of the season. Obviously, Brian Abreu is good enough. So, but it should be Hader whenever he's healthy. For the Rangers, this one is kind of open-ended right now.
Yeah, though Skip Schumacher has said he actually wants a dedicated closer. So I think most managers secretly or not so secretly do. I'll let Chris jump in, though, because he hasn't talked in a while.
No, the one thing I was going to say is just the thing that makes the Rangers bullpen especially tough is I think Chris Martin's pretty clearly the best pitcher in the bullpen. He's got like a 7-year stretch of being really good. He also has not thrown more than 44 1/3 innings in the last 2 seasons and has never reached 60 innings in a major league season. And I don't know how much this matters because it's a new manager, but the Rangers just were not really willing to give him the closer role last season, even though it was open. He only had 2 saves despite a pretty good season. So
Schumacher hasn't been mentioning him.
Yeah, I think. And I wonder if it's just like, can you be a closer if your team doesn't trust you to pitch multiple days in a row?
That might be it.
I think it might just be as simple as that. So I would give the edge here to Robert Garcia, but I think the key name to watch is Alexis Diaz, who is a former All-Star closer, was on 3 different teams, was bad for all of them last season. I want to say he dealt with a hamstring injury as well. If he can rediscover some of that all-star form this spring, I think Alexis Diaz actually has a pretty good chance of jumping the line just because Robert Garcia is a lefty, and a lot of managers are hesitant to go with lefties, although Skip Schumacher did have Tanner Scott as his closer for a while in Miami.
But the Rangers don't really have great lefty options, too. If you look at their bullpen, I mean, it's really just Robert Garcia.
The Rangers have said that they see something they can do mechanically with Alexis Diaz that they think will be a fix. Like all the enthusiasm in Rangers camp seems to be for Diaz. So I lean Diaz, but I'm not sure he's good. And so Robert Garcia seems like an easy fallback.
I will say, if it was going to work for Alexis Diaz, it's much more likely in Texas than Cincinnati, because he's an extreme fly ball pitcher, and Cincinnati's one of the best home run ballparks in baseball, and Texas is one of the worst. So maybe they can get something out of Alexis Diaz.
This next team, I have no clue. The Athletics.
Ugly.
It's another one. It's kind of like the Rockies, where I think they're a better team than the Rockies, but most of the pitchers in their bullpen are not very impressive, and it's a really bad ballpark. So I have no read on this one, honestly.
Justin Sterner's the one I've seen get drafted most often, so I will just default to that because other people who have clearly thought more about it have decided he's the front runner, but I doubt it's with much assurance or enthusiasm, and I prefer to just avoid the situation entirely.
When we did our A's team preview this offseason, Elvis Alvarado was a name that was thrown out there, so I'll just mention it in the A's bullpen. He throws really hard, but he has no idea where it's going. Next up, we have the Angels.
So Kirby Yates is the most fun. I think the storyline there is that he's being reunited with Mike Maddox, who was his pitching coach in Texas the last time Kirby Yates had a great season. And he was legitimately a great closer that season. And so hopefully Maddox can get him back on track. But, they have a couple of other Ben Joyce obviously used to be floated as a closer in waiting. Robert
I don't think he's not going to be
Stevenson.
ready for the start of the season. It doesn't sound like Ben Joyce. And Stevenson may not be either. He's coming back from another elbow issue.
Okay, we saw Stevenson a little at the end of last year, but he's been hurt a lot the past couple of years. So I think Yates is the guy to target here, and I'm more confident in that than the Athletics or the Nationals or the Diamondbacks or the Rockies. But I'm still not very confident in it. That's clearly a number 3 reliever option, Kirby Yates.
Agreed.
I think we can move pretty quickly through the AL East. For the Yankees, David Bednar. For the Red Sox, Aroldis Chapman. For the Blue Jays, Jeff Hoffman, hopefully. Orioles, Ryan Helsley, hopefully. And then we get to the Rays, which it seems like Griffin Jax should lead the team in saves. How many saves is it going to be? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a real risk of Griffin Jax ending up overdrafted as a result of this Edwin Nuceta injury, because Nuceta, one, it's no structural damage. They're still talking about like he might be ready for opening day. I don't think that's likely, but they're open to it. And two, I think even if Nuceta's completely out of the picture, it'll just be other guys. When we had Ryan Bass on the show to talk about the Rays for the team preview series, he said he specifically cited that 2021 team that had an MLB record, 14 different guys get a save. I don't think it's likely that happens again, but I do not think Griffin Jax is just going to be handed this closer job to run with. I think it's going to be a frustrating committee. And look, if you push Griffin Jax up to like the 20th closer off the board in a Roto League, I think that's fine, because I think he'll be very good. And he got to like 75 innings, which is a pretty healthy number for a reliever. So like there's, I think, a lot to like about Griffin Jax for sure. It's I think people are looking at the Edwin Nuceta injury and saying there were 2 guys in the Rays bullpen and one of them's hurt now. And I just don't think that's how. But
how early is Jax going?
Over the last week, it's around 190. I think I was looking earlier.
Where among relievers though?
But there's a min pick of 125 in there.
Yeah. Well, he should be drafted more along the lines of the Dennis Santanas and the Pete Fairbankses. If he's getting elevated beyond that, then I agree.
No, he's behind those guys. He's around 190.
Okay, well that
Santana's
seems,
160. Yeah, no, I agree. It hasn't happened yet.
That seems fine. Like it could. Tampa Bay obviously has a lot of comfort going with a committee, like as much comfort as any organization, and Kevin Cash has been there for a lot of it. So I could definitely see it playing out. I think Cardinals and Rays are the 2 teams with the most likely to be a true committee, but it doesn't have to play out that way either. And a lot of times what we see happen with these questionable closer situations is a manager will go in saying it's going to be a committee, refusing to commit to anyone, and then just as the season's playing out, it becomes somebody. And I could see it becoming any one of these guys, whether it's Jax, Edwin Uceta, let's say he comes back healthy, even Garrett Clevenger, even though he's the lefty, like the numbers are good enough that if things are going wrong with Jackson and Uceta, I could see him emerging as the one. So if the price is reasonable, if it remains 200 to 300 for any one of those guys in a deep roto league, I'd take any one and just see how it evolves. But if Jax gets pushed up, like Jax is clearly the front runner right now. If he gets pushed up into the top 150, then obviously that's an avoid.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet, to be clear. I'm just kind of speculating that there just seems to be a lot. Like, I think the general consensus among fantasy analysts and players is Griffin Jax is better than Edwin Uceta anyway.
I'm not confident in that.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but it seems like there's more interest in Griffin Jax. So now that Uceta is out of the way, I think Griffin Jax's price could start to get a little out of hand.
Next up, we have the Royals, and Carlos Estevez led baseball in saves last year. Look, Royals fans might laugh at me for this. I would take the field.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a guy with iffy skill sets and you have a whole bullpen of other guys to take, I don't think that's an unreasonable approach to take when projecting. But I also do think Estevez has no risk of losing the job because he just got outperformed. Hold on. And what I mean by that is if he pitches poorly, then he's going to lose the job. If he just holds serve, I think it's his job the whole season.
Sure.
And I think holding serve is probably like a 3.50 ERA. So there is room for him to regress from last year and still hang on to that job. But the peripherals suggest even a 3.50 ERA may be asking too much from Carlos Estevez, whose strikeout rate was a career low. His walk rate was higher than it was in 2024. He's an extreme fly ball pitcher. It is very easy to see how things go very wrong for Carlos Estevez.
There's no heir apparent, is what you're saying. Like last year there was in Lucas Erceg, but Erceg, 264 ERA, but his 7 per 9, 7K per 9 was.
That was their entire bullpen. I almost wonder if it was like a team philosophy thing for them. It was weird.
I do think if they want to go with Matt Strahm, I think he's probably the best pitcher in that bullpen.
Oh, that's true. I forgot he joined the Royals.
It was very, if I'm remembering correctly, it was very much like, oh God, I'm blanking on the name now. Oh, when Ryan Presley got traded from the Astros at the beginning of last season, it was very much you kind of told me I was going to be a closer, and then you signed Josh Hader. I kind of want out. It seems like Matt Strahm wanted a more prominent role in the Phillies bullpen, and that wasn't going to happen. So it's entirely possible. I think Matt Strahm is the best pitcher in this bullpen. He's been very good for a while now out of the Phillies bullpen. So that's the name to watch in Philadelphia, I think, with
Kansas City.
Excuse me, is Matt Strahm.
For the Tigers, do we just go with the vet?
Yeah, this is not the most robust form of analysis, but I have a hard time seeing Kenley Jansen, who is 20 saves away from 500 or something, very close to a really significant milestone. I have a hard time believing he was signed with a team to not be their closer. I think if he signed anywhere, it was to be as a closer.
He's 24 away from 500.
There you go, 24 away from 500.
AJ Hinch has not declared him the has consciously not declared him the closer, which I think that's just AJ Hinch being annoying and sticking to his values. But I agree with Chris. I don't think Jansen would have gone there if he didn't have some assurances he'd be the guy.
He was on a podcast last month, I think it was, AJ Hinch, and he said the first save will probably go to the guy that's 500. That's on 500.
The active leader in saves among all pitchers and top 5 ever, who is still
But he didn't actually say like
it's
Kenley
funny.
Jansen is our
But he is still good. It's not like Kenley Jansen stinks now. He had a 2.59 ERA last year. Okay, he's not quite that good, but Kenley Jansen has never had an ERA over 4. That's pretty bonkers.
It's funny that he worded it that way. The first save will go to, because it's been 2 straight years now where
The first save.
the guy we thought was going to close for the Tigers, opening day arrives and it's somebody that wasn't even on our radar coming out to get the save.
Yep. For the Guardians, it should be Cade Smith, and he should be amazing at it. For the White Sox, they have
number 1 RP upside. Yeah.
For the White Sox, they named Sir Anthony Dominguez their closer. But
Thank you, White Sox.
Can he hold on to it? I guess
He's probably good enough.
Yeah. And then the Twins. Feels like they're just a bunch of names, and they might be really bad.
They're another one of those bullpens. Are we up to 6 now, where it's just I have no interest at all?
That sounds
Well,
right.
and the biggest problem for the Twins, there was a piece in The Athletic today about this, or maybe yesterday. All of their best relievers are lefties, basically. Like, they're actually struggling with, can we really get away with carrying 4 lefties in an 8-man bullpen? But if you actually look at it, those are probably the best guys in the bullpen, so they probably should, which could potentially open up Taylor Rogers to be the closer.
Yeah.
He's a very good reliever who hasn't really ever...
Good reliever. He used to be very good.
I think...
And it's a homecoming for him, too. He was the closer in Minnesota years ago.
So I think Taylor Rogers is probably the most likely.
Yeah. I will throw the name Justin Topa out there just because when we did our Twins preview this offseason, that was the name that was given to me. But that was also before Taylor Rogers signed. So do with that what you will.